Hello and welcome to today's presentation, Understanding and Calculating Time-Space, for the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association and the Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network. The information contained here has been prepared by Civitas Strategies Early Start and is not intended to constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. The Civitas Strategies Early Start team has used reasonable efforts in collecting, preparing, and providing this information, but does not guarantee its accuracy, completeness, adequacy, or currency. The publication and distribution is not intended to create, and receipt does not constitute an attorney-client or any other advisory relationship. Reproduction of this information is expressly prohibited. Here is what we plan to cover during our time together today. We'll spend the majority of the time with me discussing the steps for calculating time and space. Why and when should providers use time-space? How does the time-space calculation work? Regular versus exclusive use. Why and when is time-space important? The time-space calculation is uniquely useful for home child care providers because they have a unique position as home-based businesses. They are able to consider or include space that is used regularly. For example, 1 to 3 times a week as a business use in this calculation. The time-space calculation helps determine business expenses that also overlap with personal home use. Now we'll take a deeper look at calculating time-space. There are 5 very basic steps to calculating time-space. These steps consider space first, then time. So step 1 takes the square footage of the space regularly used by the child care. Step 2 takes the total square footage of the entire home and divides the first number by the second. Step 3 looks at the time the home is used for child care. Step 4 divides that number by the total hours in a year. And step 5 multiplies those two percentages to determine the time-space percentage for in-home business expenses. Let's look at the details in each so you can see how you can walk providers through the calculations. The first step, determine the square footage of the area in the home that is regularly used for child care. Here is the term that I've mentioned already, regular use. Consider all the spaces that get used regularly for child care. Regular use means it is used for business at least once a week, and children don't have to be in those areas for them to be counted. Storage rooms, laundry rooms, desks that you use for an office regularly, all count. Step 1 is easy for many, but this breakdown can help some providers if it's needed. Using a tape measure, fix a tape measure to one end of the longest wall in the space and extend it to the other end. Record this measurement in feet, not inches. Next, fix a tape measure to one end of the shortest wall in the space and extend it to the other end. Finally, record this measurement in feet, not inches. For oddly shaped spaces, break it down into rectangular chunks. Do square footage calculations and add the totals together. This is what the calculation looks like. Multiple length by width of each regularly used area for child care. For each of those regularly used spaces, add the square footages together for an overall total for the child care program. For example, if the space is 12 feet long and 10 feet wide, the square footage would be 120 square feet, which is 12 feet by 10 feet. Step 2. Divide the child care square footage you just calculated and divide it by the total square footage of the home. By total square footage, include garage, basement, deck, but not lawn or outdoor spaces. This gives you a percentage of the home regularly used for business. For example, if you use 500 square feet of your home child care space and the home is 1,100 square feet, then the result is 0.454. Multiply that number by 100 to get the percentage, 45.4%. Steps 1 and 2 got us the space part of our time-space calculation, and these next steps get us the time component as well. Step 3 asks for the total amount of time the home was used for child care during the year. In addition to the time the children are present, that's from the first drop-off to the last pickup. The provider should also include time spent doing things for the business when children aren't there, including cleaning, activity prep, meal prep, talking to parents on the phone, interviews, time researching things online. To find an accurate representation of this time, they can track these activities closely for 2 months, record the time, then take the average to use throughout the year. Providers will use the hours childcare is open per week and multiply that by the number of weeks open for service and hours performed while closed. For example, if the business is open 10 hours per day for childcare, but the provider spent an hour beforehand preparing and an hour after cleaning up, that's 12 hours per day, 5 days per week. Of course, you'll subtract any time the business is closed, but likely, during even the closure time, the provider continues to maintain the space and prepare to have children again. That time should be included in the annual total as well. Then comes the math. 12 hours per day times 5 days per week times 48 weeks open plus 10 hours when you were closed equals 2,890 hours. In step 4, you'll divide the hours the home was used for childcare by the total hours in a year. In our example, we divide 2,890 hours that we just calculated by 8,760 to get 0.329, which as a percentage equals 32.9%. Step 5, the base percentages, time and space, get multiplied here for the combined percentage. In our example, those two multiplied together equals 0.149, or 14.9%. 14.9% is this provider's time-space percentage. It is the calculation of the time and space the home is used for business purposes. This is a screenshot of our time-space worksheet. I added some sample numbers for us here. 506 square feet is used for childcare out of 1,100 total square footage. We'll come back to this breakdown in a moment. And 50 hours are spent a week providing care, 10 hours each day, with another 2 hours per day working on the business without children present, for organizing, cleaning, and prepping. These two numbers are multiplied automatically in the Excel worksheet to get our time-space percentage. You see lines 5 and 6. These point to the square footage of regular use, which is a term we've been using throughout this so far, and exclusive use. So let's talk about regular versus exclusive use, and how you can support providers in distinguishing these spaces, and how they should be included in time space if they are applicable. What is regularly or exclusively used space? We've defined regular use already. Use regularly for the business. Exclusive use, on the other hand, is space that is only used for the business and never personally. These spaces are considered exclusive use because you have no personal benefit or use of the space outside of childcare. In the worksheet example, you remember I added 6 square feet there. I imagine that this is a closet for supplies, toys, etc., used only for the childcare program. Of course, exclusive use is weighed differently in the overall time-space calculation because the space is used 100% of the time essentially. Your exclusively used areas would weigh higher in your percentage calculation. If the providers have spaces that they use exclusively, they'll want to add that separately, and the calculation would look like this. This will be done in step 5. In our steps outlined here in the guide. Additional resources for early care and education can be found at the Wisconsin Early Childhood Association or WECA website. If you are not a member of the Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network, you can click here to learn about business training and support it offers. If you are ready to join the Wisconsin Early Education Shared Services Network, you can also click here to join